You're a young'un and you're living your best life. You're living it a little bit wild, you know.
Just think about the repercussions.
It ain't easy. Hello, Salibonani, and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video we're talking about how to survive having a baby as a young mum. I've come up with 5 tips that I think were absolutely fundamental to surviving our time as new parents that were transitioning from a very different lifestyle to kind of trying to be a bit more responsible and a bit more focused. When I say I'm young, I'm not young, but I'm young. So we had our little baby at 25, which I think for a lot of people doesn't really fall into the young mum category. I was quite the extrovert, like I was busy, I had a budding social life, so I was always out, always doing things, travelling and travelling within my job as well. So when we did find out about Riley, it came as a beautiful surprise as you can imagine, but we quickly realised that there was a lot that we needed to do to get ourselves ready. Only after 2 years we are ready. First tip is definitely to plan, forecast and set goals. Once Riley came into our lives, we quickly realised that we couldn't both sort of do our own thing or just think more about ourselves, but we had to then start thinking about what we then wanted for Riley and what we wanted for ourselves as Riley's parents. Not that that is like the definitive be all and end all for us, so we've got individual goals but we've also got set goals, so we're both aware of what we want, what we're looking to do, but also the goals we're working towards together. So for example, saving towards a house. That is a standard simple one in the UK. Everyone's trying to get on the property ladder, and then we've also got our goal of developing our savings, which then also feeds into trying to develop a house, but also it's that idea of if anything did happen to us, then our child would have something to fall back on. The second piece of advice that I would say is to actually keep the faith and pray. So if you're not a Christian like myself, I believe that everyone has something that they believe in or something that they choose to not believe in, and whatever you live by. For me, I'll talk about Christianity because that's what I live by. Prayer has been fundamental in shaping a lot of the decision making we've made, our processes, our happiness, taking us through challenges, and it's actually given me a lot of clarity about how I want my family to grow and develop, and it's been fundamental for me. So we had some excellent advice from a good friend of ours that basically was to ensure that God is part of our inner circle. So between my husband and I, God is the fundamental, and I think whenever we stray from that or get distracted and forget, our things don't seem to materialise as well as we'd like them to. So I always remember to keep the faith at the focal point as well. And then another one, which I think you don't even have to be a young mum to think about this, but you have to readjust your priorities and be willing to sacrifice for your family. And let's say if you're on a certain type of career path and you have to take a week out because your child has chicken pox, it's not ideal. And I think that was one of my first big challenges. My son had chicken pox just as I was getting ready to go back in the city, so that then had an impact on me going back to work, and the tone that that set then made me feel a certain type of way. And I did struggle with it at first, but then I actually realised that over everything, my child's well-being beat it all. So I'm just encouraging that that's another element that people have to consider. And it all sounds like common knowledge, I guess, but I always say to my husband, like, not even common knowledge, like common sense. Like, common sense isn't common. Like, there's certain things where until you experience it, you would think this is the advice I'd give to someone, and then you're in those shoes and you're like, oh wow, like I'm struggling with that. So yeah, I really think that that element of reprioritising is so essential and so fundamental, so you have to be open-minded. Another thing that I think is so important is a balance. So a balance of actually everything that you're trying to do and everything that you're trying to be for your new family. Thinking about whether you need to be mum all the time, wife all the time, daughter-in-law, sister, friend, colleague or whatever. I think or, you know, financial planner, nurse, all the different roles that you might come across. There has to be a balance of you making sure that you're just the right amount of everything to everyone, but also that you take time to be the right amount of you to yourself. The last point, that is basically to make sure you get the me time. I feel like without the me time, surviving being a mother and all the energy and all the drive that's required for that role, you can't cope. So sometimes it's okay to be tired, it's okay to need help. I feel like in our African culture there is a lot of like expectations in terms of how you should cook, how you should host, what you should do for your husband, how you should be raising your children, how you should look, how you should speak, how you should be put together, how your house should look. Like another thing that we don't talk about in the Zimbabwean community, in the African society as much, is mental health and well-being. If you don't feel like things are coming naturally, or you're struggling with things, you know, I urge people to communicate. It is a bit of a taboo in our community, it is a bit of a sore subject to talk about, and more I think we have people that are talking about mental health, postnatal depression, and struggles with well-being. I think those conversations are coming out a lot more now, but it's still not enough. I think those 5 tips are the things that I've learned in the last 2 years of having our little toddler, and I continue to learn every day. We continue to learn every day, and children are such a wonderful blessing. But if you feel like you are surprised by your child, or your child is unexpected, then these are, for me, the tips that I would advise people to take on board. Let me know what your thoughts are. I hope to see you on the next one, and if you can still see that red button, that means you haven't subscribed. Like, what are you waiting for? Press that red button. Alright guys, take care. See you later. Bye.
Don't know what to do.